Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kishore Karpurappu, Urban Transport Planner working with IUT. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the 16th Urban Mobility India Conference cum Exhibition 2023. This technical session is on embedding resilience in urban transportation systems, metro session. The format for the session is as follows. There would be opening remarks by the chairperson and moderator, Dr. Kumar Sinha, Senior Transport Specialist, Asian Development Bank. This would be followed by presentation by our distinguished speakers, after which there would be a question and answer sessions. Now I would like to invite the chairperson and moderator, Dr. Mukund Kumar Sinha. I'll just give an introduction, sir. Dr. Sinha is currently on external assignment to KfW Development Bank, Germany. He supports banks lending in the urban development, mobility, and climate change sectors in South Asia. Earlier, as OSD and Joint Secretary, Urban Transport from 2013 to 19 in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. He headed the nodal officer for rail and road-based urban transport in India. He drafted the Metro Rail Policy 2017, TOD Policy 2017. He is from the 1988 batch of Special Class Railway Apprentice of India, an alumnus of the London School of Economics. He did MBA from MDI and PhD from IIT Delhi. Now I would request Dr. Sinha to give his opening remarks and moderate the session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon to you all. Namaste. It was a pretty heavy session we had before this, and I guess this will be much cooler now here in this room with this new session. I'm not going to give any keynote address. I'll just introduce the session, and then we have a very illustrious panel of speakers, and I'm sure all of you are very eager to listen to them. The topic of the session is embedding resilience in urban transport, and with a special focus on metro rail. Resilience, what exactly is resilience? If we look around, there are many definitions, but I think a common line is that it's that property of an infrastructure, or we can say urban transport infrastructure, which gives it the capability to withstand untoward incidents like natural calamities, fire hazards, accidents, cybercrime, etc. And also to rebound back to its original state of activity without impacting much of the parameters, the performance parameters. That is roughly the general definition which is accepted all over. And embedding resilience definitely means how do we plan, design, how do we execute, how do we construct, how do we operate, and how do we finance these urban transport systems so that it is resilient, it's able to take the impacts, and also rebound back to its original state of activities. Now, why the special focus on urban rail in this session? If we see the context, the Indian context, and we have already heard in the previous session, the first metro started in 1982. But after 2002, when Delhi Metro started the first line, there has been a proliferation, or I would say a huge expansion of metro rail systems in India. And it's currently we have about 1,000 kilometers of metro, and a similar figure in the making, in the construction. Also, there are huge investments. It caters to a very vulnerable set of population which needs it, which probably has no other mode of transport. And since the capacities are huge, if the operation of metros are stopped, then the options are pretty less because you have to shift that many people to other mode. And also keeping the alignment in mind, there's very little flexibility in metros. So I would stop here, and now I would like to request the panel members to please come on stage. Mr. Reddy, Mr. KVB Reddy, Mr. Fuller, Dr. Claus, Mr. D.K. Sinha, yes, Ms. Rashmi, and Professor Srivastav from IIT Gandhinagar. And Mr. P.U.K. Reddy Yeah. So I would be introducing each of the speakers as and when they come on to speak, uh, and you would see their bio on the slides. So first, let me invite Mr. P.U.K. Reddy, who is the General Manager of Kolkata Metro and also Chairman of Kolkata Metro Rail Corporation. Some of you who might be wondering why Kolkata Metro and Kolkata Metro Rail Corporation, these are two distinct entities. Kolkata Metro is a zone of the Indian Railways. So Indian Railways, you have many zones. One of the zone, it's a zonal railway, and he's heading that zone as a general manager. Pretty big responsibility. There is another metro system, which is the Kolkata Metro Rail Corporation Limited, which is a undertaking of Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and which acts as a company. Kolkata Metro is a sovereign entity. Kolkata Metro Rail Corporation is a company, and both of them are in the construction of metro rail in Kolkata. One very distinct feature is that this is the oldest metro in India, as you must have already heard, and it has many challenges. It has seen over the period of time. The first metro, when it was constructed, and the Honorable Minister said that it took a lot of time, it was cut and cover construction. There was no tunnel boring. Cut the entire structure, make the railway line, and then cover it up. So it took so much of time. And also, the first tunnel for a metro under the river in India is in Kolkata and in the Kolkata Metro Rail Corporation. So without wasting any much time, I'll now invite Mr. P.U.K. Reddy. Sir, please. You can use this.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Mukund, rest of the panelists and the audience, a very good afternoon to you all. Today morning in the session, as Mr. Mukund had already briefed you, he started off with the Calcutta Metro. Calcutta Metro happens to be, as we all know, the first metro of the India, where we started experimenting on the metro systems, mass urban mobility transport systems. And what all we learned from how the metro is made, what are the challenges in the metro, infrastructure building and running, has gone and spread to the other metros which are going to come up and are already. Like Mr. Sridharan, who is supposed to be the metro man, had his grounding in Calcutta Metro. He started off there, learned, and did not repeat the same mistakes which were done in Calcutta Metro. So those are the things which happened. And I think I'll start off. Another thing which Mukund had already told you, the 22 years we took to reach the stage where we are in now. There was a lot of challenges. Up to 2014, we had about 27 to 29 kilometers of track. That was what it is. And from 2014 onwards to 23, we have added another 25 kilometers of track. So roughly we are now about 47 to 48. And in another 3 to 4 years, we'll be reaching about 100. So we are going at a very fast pace, and a lot of infrastructure support is needed. And also, by being in completely a central government unit, the support from the state government was very much lacking and is still lacking. But somehow we are able to pull it through, and we are going ahead and doing it. I will just go ahead with my, as told already, the Dum-Dum Toliganj section was sanctioned in 72. Foundation stone, as you can see, the photograph was laid by Prime Minister at the time, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. and the first train was rolled out in October 1984. For those of the history buffs who are there in here, I mean, after the metro was started off in London in about, I don't know, 1890s or something. In about 1917 or 1921, they promoted a proposal to start a underground metro in Calcutta, because Calcutta was the jewel. I mean, India was the jewel in the crown of England. And then we had the shifting of the capital to Delhi, and funds did not come through, and it stayed. And then lastly, in 1972, it was sanctioned. By and large, it has followed the alignment which was done at that point of time. This is the brief of the lines which are there in the railways in the Calcutta Metro. The blue line is the oldest. The two ends, that is towards the Dakshineshwar and here towards New Garia, were the two things which got completed in 22. Otherwise, between Dum Dum, that is the airport, and the Toliganj was done quite earlier. The green line which you can see is by and large over. I mean, this is the thing which we are crossing the river Hooghly. I mean, when we did the first trials, there was a lot of comment in the media saying that no, Chennai Metro has done it beneath the river Kuam. So then we had to re-clarify it as that one of the large rivers, so to make it more meaningful. And the construction is on for the purple line and the orange line, the yellow and the pink lines. All these things will come out to about 97 odd kilometers once it gets done. This is the east-west metro line, the green line which is there. I mean, where we are crossing the tunnel and the river Hooghly. I mean, I'll be coming to that in detail. Here we had some incidences between Sialda and Esplanade. We had the submersion of the land, and still it's going on. We'll be doing it. By December, we plan to commission that, and by June next, the entire line will be ready. This is the first transportation tunnel under the mighty river in India. Some features of the tunnel. This under the river, the length is about 520 meters. That is the shortest length across the Ganga which we had tried to place it. Then the Howrah metro station is the deepest metro station in India at about 33 meters below the ground. And it connects up two major terminals in Calcutta, that is the Howrah and Sialda. These two cater to about 22 lakh people passengers every day. So even if we can shift about 5 to 10% or 25% of it, it will be a huge challenge to run the metro system. So basically, the tunneling under the Hooghly River is, compared to any other metro in India, the Calcutta Metro is in the delta. So the entire soil out there is a sedimentation over the centuries, over the millennia. So the construction of the metro at that place in the city is very, very difficult. And in the initial time when we did it, in the first blue line, it was entirely a cut and cover method. Then we went to the extensions, we went with tunneling. And the new things also, we are going with tunneling and generally on the viaduct. This tunnel of 520 meters was in fact completed way back in 2017. And this entire project, tunneling took only 66 days to complete it. As you can see, we have the clayey soil out there and the sandy silt oil there, and so it is about roughly 15 meters below the bed of it. The geological profile, the same. I think this is slightly. And one of the challenges which we had to bear while tunneling was that they were, as I told you, they were silt deposition over the years of time. There were pockets of liquid and in between, and the subsidence happened because of that. We hit one of the pockets. This pocket thing happened in Haridwar also, or somewhere, when they were doing the pipeline. IOC or HPCL was doing the pipeline. They had a similar problem. Now, for that, we had to do a lot of soil investigations, and the TBM operation was really a difficult one, which we had to do continuous thing, so that we did not leave it at any point of time for any reaction. And even the shift change, we did not allow it to happen. And under the river thing, we had to shield it from any leakage at any point of time. So the dewatering pumps, and making 100% standby of the pumps available, and all resources which are required, we had to make it 100%, 200% availability, so that we, at no point of time, we were required to stop the machines at any given time. And we had communication systems running throughout. A lot of involvement was there. Even we had doctors on site. So, and we did not allow any mishap to happen. The geology was stiff clay silt. The soil penetration test values were quite low, and geological obstruction was not expected, and we could work at a very steady pace, and the TBM crew and all really did a wonderful job to get it done. That was a little brief on the underwater tunnel. And then coming back to the resilience of the system. This was built in 1970s. Now, everybody knows now we have the concrete availability was only M20 at that point of time. Now with M35 we have. Even with M20 concrete, the fathers who had really done that metro work construction were so meticulous in their planning. Still, we are still able to run it 40 years down the line. We are still able to run it. The groundwater was allowed to pass through the porous tunnel, and then we collect it in the sumps and pump it out at regular intervals. So, even in the monsoon, the peak of the monsoon seasons, we don't have any flooding in the metro system. Water seepage is there. Yes, we pump it out. We survive. And of course, it is the lifeline of the city. Metros anyway are the lifeline of the city wherever they are. And national power grid failures, I don't know how they had planned, but this is the only metro without a DG set in any of the stations. And in these 40 years of service, we have never needed it. We had a failure, once in July 2012, and in the midsection, they were stranded for just 1 hour. And we are the first metro, in fact, to go in for a lithium ferrophosphate battery systems. In one of the stations we have put it up, and it is costly, but very, very productive, and life cycle cost is quite less. This system, once it comes into place, will be able to haul about 60 trains can be hauled, and 4 trains can be hauled at the same time. And the speed of the train, basically we'll have to clear the sections, is at a slow speed of 10 to 20 kmph. And even without any system, without any power, we will be able to run some trains at 50 kmph too. And subsoil temperature is this metro and the Hong Kong metro are in the temperate regions. And at that time, IIT Kharagpur had designed the air conditioning and the train ventilation systems in 70s. We had no only manual calculation was available. And the temperature of the station was set at 25 to 28 degrees centigrade. And the cooled air was taken out from the midpoint exhaust, and as the subsoil temperature was about 27.5 degrees. And we have, this is a standard thing, under platform exhaust has been provided at various places to remove the thing. The design at the time when they had done it, they had foreseen so much in future that it ensures by default 2 ventilation zones between 2 adjacent stations, even with 1.5 minute headways. And all the fire hydrant systems are gravitational fed. There is no need for electrical power systems. Only when we require to boost it, then we require an electrical system. Otherwise, it is all gravitationally fed. And the traction transformers were dry types, and all the cables were fire retardant low smoke cables. In 70s, India did not have it, but still it was ensured that the metro had it. And it was really a lot of effort and planning had gone into it. That is why I said Mr. Sridharan, when he came out of it, he ensured that all the things which he learned from the mother metro, that is the Calcutta metro, was incorporated in all other metros. Now, the blue line has been in operation for about 40 years now. All other corridors are coming up. Now the new things, the panels and all, it is in seismic zone 4. So all things have been designed for that. And the green line is the latest line for us, where all other lines are broad gauge lines, and only the standard gauge line is the green line. It is the most up-to-date metro in the entire country. And I think that I would end up with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A lot of interesting facts about Kolkata Metro, which we probably did not know. And I have personally seen the sites of Kolkata East-West corridor and gone inside the tunnel while it was being constructed. It's a big challenge. And while you were presenting, I was speaking with Mr. Fuller from Sistra. He was involved in the design and execution of that part, and there were many interesting aspects. So thank you very much for sharing your insights, and I'm sure we'll have many questions. The oldest one question which I have in mind is that Kolkata Metro is the oldest metro in the country. Which is the oldest metro in the world? I was just wondering. Anyone? London?
New York.
Okay.
New York. 1890. But London started operation.
Okay, another question to my young friends who already have their mobiles in their hand, ready to answer. Which is the largest PPP metro in the world? The largest metro constructed under public-private partnership in the world. Just shout out your answer. Yeah, so we have it. And we are very proud to have the CEO of Hyderabad Metro with us to share his experience from the private sector perspective. Mr. KVB Reddy, MD and CEO and L&T Metro Hyderabad Limited. Lot of challenges faced by the metro. Some of the challenges which a private sector metro faces, the government metro, they don't even, they don't have an inkling about it, because especially at the time of disaster, the government metros may have deep pockets which the private sector metro doesn't have, and they are already stressed in many ways. We are very proud to have the largest PPP metro in India, sir, and we are eagerly looking forward to your perspective on embedding resilience in the urban transport system. A big round of applause for Mr. KVB Reddy, please.
Thank you, Mukundi. My co-panelists and delegates here, very good afternoon to all of you. And in fact, I've been privileged to be here amongst all of you to present about Hyderabad Metro and how the resilience is built into the Hyderabad Metro, especially the background, what this conclave wants, and this conference would like to take it forward from the perspective of a PPP, public-private partnership metro that is constructed and operated for the last 5 years. We have been operating it, and some of the experiences I'm going to share with you, especially on the resilience side. There are many unplanned things that can happen, like Mr. Mukund has already explained at the beginning. With specific to very recently happened, the pandemic, I think all of you are aware, and it is still not gone out of our mind and hearts. Still, somewhere the scare is there, and how we could manage and came back to the normal operations in a better way than what we were doing pre-COVID levels. Before that, just brief about Hyderabad Metro. We have 3 corridors. The red corridor and blue corridor and green corridor. This planning was done in very systematic way at the DPR stage itself, how to cover maximum of the city way back in 2008 and 9. And then the project award work was taken up, and before L&T was awarded this entire package on PPP mode, it was awarded to MITAS, and due to some reasons it has backed out. The day it has been awarded and we signed the concession agreement, which is for 35 years plus 25 years, total 60 years. And the state bifurcation has started, and there are a lot of political issues had taken place. The financing has become a challenge. But with the support of L&T, the gigantic construction organization, most of the financing could, though there was challenges, but we could conclude this. And the land acquisition was a very, very serious issue during that stage. Then finally the state division happened and the new government was in place. Then again, previous government and the new governments, they were different. The support, what we were expected, was not coming through. So finally, it took almost 2.5 years to 3 years delay in constructing this project. It was supposed to be commissioned, the entire 70 kilometers. Should have been commissioned in 2015, but the first line we could commence in only November 2017. Almost 2.5 years delay happened. The first line of 30 kilometers, the only metro in India which is commissioned, probably subject to corrections, on a single day, 30 kilometers was commissioned by our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Modi ji, on 29th of November 2017. That's one of the highlights of this project. And this being the largest PPP in the world, and also the largest operating PPP in India, because there are only 2 PPP projects which are in operation. One is Hyderabad Metro, the other one is Mumbai Metro, the whole line, 11.5 kilometers. And many projects have come up on PPP mode. Somehow they could not succeed. Ultimately, they went back to government. Like DMRC has taken over many projects and they are operating it. And coming back to the resilience features, especially Hyderabad Metro, we were lucky enough to have the experiences of like mother of metros Calcutta and father of metros Delhi Metro. We have embedded a lot of their SOPs that were already available with them. Those things we have taken into consideration while designing the project stage itself. Apart from this, we have also hired an international metro and the trams operator, Keolis, French company. At the time of the construction stage itself, What all the things, because they are operating worldwide 34 metros and tramways, they had huge amount of the experience worldwide. All those things, their experiences have brought into place from the day one itself. So these SOPs, standard operating processes, how to come back and how to resilience out of the unforeseen things that are happening. I think the major things that are already covered in our standard these things are major fire, train accident, terrorist attacks, unmanageable crowd management is another thing. I think I'll talk about that little later. Pandemic, natural calamities, etc. The disaster management programs for all these things are in place. And while there is, I'm going to focus specifically on the COVID related issues. A case study kind of a thing has been done, but these are all very common things. But the only thing, the result, everybody would have followed this and everybody would have experienced this. The resilience is ultimately result how much people, what is the confidence level you have created in the people's mind post COVID, and how did you handle this, and what is the rate of success. So we did a small study on this, and I'm happy to say that Hyderabad Metro has achieved the highest score on that. It is done by Keolis only. Worldwide they have done. They have compared Indian metros also in their pre-COVID, post-COVID people, how much people have come back and accepted this system. So COVID, this lockdown has been announced in March 2020. Before that, a couple of months before, the signals are there, and we started really thinking what all things we need to do if this is going to be a huge pandemic. So that's where the experiences of all the existing metros and Keolis expertise, they have faced certain things in Europe that time, and those things have been put into place. Started positively thinking, preparedness has been done, and there are many things I have listed out. Then restarting the metro post-COVID, there was complete fear psychosis among everybody, all the passengers. To give example, we were operating close to 4 lakh passengers per day pre-COVID. Suddenly, post-lockdown, it started with only 20,000. The ramp up is so slow because of the lot of restrictions, SOPs, everybody has to follow. The fear is there. Just to give an example, everybody, whoever was using the urban transport system, they all moved to individual. They're buying the cars or scooters, and they started going only on that. Nobody is using the metro or buses. This was a common phenomena everybody has faced. Then I can tell you with my own example. Hyderabad was one of the largest second-hand car market. All the cars were flooded before COVID, and post-COVID, everything has become empty. So including I myself has brought one car there. So that was the fear psychosis, and nobody wants to come back to metro. And we had to put in a lot of efforts to convince them, keeping the practices and showing them the lot of communication, especially whether it is through social media channels or TVs. All those things has been communicated through print media, electronic media. Everything has been done. So people have started believing in us, and they started coming to metros, and they have seen everything that is what we said is being practiced. So they gradually started gaining the confidence and started coming to metros. And major the disaster could have happened is if the health of the employees and passengers could not have been controlled, then that could have made a very disastrous plan for us. But that was a special focus what we have done, and all these various activities, thermal screening, enforcing the mask. Anybody is not having a mask also, we gave them free of cost, and everything has been done. But again, the issue is here to spend so much extra for the thermal screening, additional security. QRTs have been put in place, masks, then sanitization liquids and other things. Huge amount of the cash was required, whereas PPP being already delayed project, huge amount of the losses we were incurring, but still we could do it and bring back the confidence in the people. The impact of the COVID, I don't have to say anything. There's a huge delays that has happened in both in project and financial viability has also badly affected. And then the timelines have been shifted, the entire nationwide, not only for our metro. The spare parts availability, that has also affected very badly. And the biggest thing as a PPP, which was a great concern to us, was fare box collection and non-fare also. The entire industry has gone for effort, whether advertisement or all other, even TOD has took a complete backseat. We had some TOD parcels also, that also was very badly affected. Everything was, I think, we at one point of the time we thought of surrendering the project to government, but somehow we could sustain. The people have accepted us, and with whatever confidence level we could create on them. Today we are operating at 7.5 lakh. Happy to say with the same kilometers. And these are the various activities that we have done. I think everything is common. The PPE wearing for the frontline workers, and all the frontline workers on top priority have been vaccinated. Whoever is dealing directly with the passengers, with their certificates hanging to their neck, and cleaning of the all touch points. Every metro train after every trip is cleaned thoroughly and sanitized with the spray of sanitization. And these are the things what we have already done. And communication was really important, which we had spent a lot of time and effort. The special task forces have been created to monitor the health of our own employees, and also the passengers who are traveling. That is also monitored through CCTVs, and co-passengers were given some particular QR code, which the moment they click on the QR code with their smartphones, it comes to our control room with the train number and coach number, and QRT team reaches there and provide the necessary help. Tied up with a lot of hospitals all along the corridors. Ambulance services were kept in almost all the major stations. So this is what I already mentioned. And apart from this, we have also kept ready for any passengers in each of the stations. The oxygen support cylinders were provided, and we have also procured 3 big oxygen generators and supplied to local hospitals, so that the support is always available to us. And huge amount is spent on procuring the masks and distributing it to all the passengers. These are some of the initiatives I mentioned. In the middle picture, you can see with a smartphone, you click that, and immediately this is for the tracing. Basically, we used the moment you click this, and if any passenger has been found who was traveling next to you, and you have clicked and you are registered yourself on the same coach, then it is traced back, and you have been provided the required support to prevent any COVID contamination. And if you see the third one, the ozone cleaning. All of you know that ozone cleans almost 99.99% of all the viral and bacterial infections, but it's very dangerous also to use it. What we used to do, we have procured 6 machines, 2 depots. Each depot has got 3 machines. Once the train reaches back to the depot, all the 3 coaches are fitted with this. It takes hardly 5 minutes. It's a portable machine. Fill it up with it generates the ozone, and for 15 minutes we run the air conditioning in the coach, so that it cleans the entire filters also wherever bacterial traces are there. So that's a 100% elimination of the bacteria is also done at our depots. So post-COVID challenges are again same thing I explained to you, getting the people confidence back and coming, bringing them back to the metro and building their confidence. But the restrictions have continued for a long time post-lockdown also. That's where we had found we could face a lot of problems because though the passengers are willing to come back, we had to restrict, because each coach we cannot accommodate more than, with these restrictions, not more than 60. Otherwise, we can go up to close to 300 people in a coach. So it was almost 1/5 of the total capacity. But people were coming in more, asking them to sit in the alternative chairs and keeping a distance. That has become a challenge, but I think somehow we could manage, and running the more trains between the. We made short loops also, so that the more trains can operate between the in the rush period between the heavy stations. See, one of the suggestions what I think Mukund has already mentioned, being a PPP project, the support that was expected from the government, like any other, like RTC was also parallel to us, they were getting a full support from the government. They have CSR funds, all those things. The entire government machinery was there with them also. Whereas when it comes to a PPP project, you are MRA, Metro Rail Administrator, you have to do it yourself. Please manage yourself with your own funds. And there was no relief given. And whatever this additional expenditure that has come, the financial hit that has taken, there was no support that was provided by either state government or central government. That's one of the biggest challenge. So my suggestion through this conference is there should be some fund for all the metros which can be created, and whether at the state government level or central government level, which can be equally utilized for all these kind of the to manage calamities for the public purpose. This is the only suggestion I got. Thank you very much.
There's a question I have in mind. Can a metro train be stolen? I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just trying to tell you the last speaker in the session is going to speak on that. So if you leave the session, you will probably miss something very interesting. So talking about PPP, if you see during the pandemic, urban transport was the first to stop and the last to start. And Mr. Reddy did give a suggestion in the end, which does give an hint as to the problems which are faced by the private sector. And that is problem of finance. If you don't get a revenue over a prolonged period of time, what do you do? And you have fixed operating expenditures. You have salaries to be paid. So this is a financial shock more than anything else. And we see it after the pandemic. We can see how it is, showing the gigantic problem of finances. And this brings me to our next speaker, Dr. Klaus Liebig, Head of Division Climate Finance and Mobility South Asia, KfW Development Bank. And he's had illustrious experience in Europe as well. And currently he is heading the KfW Mobility section for South Asia. And I would like to invite Dr. Klaus for his perspective on what could be the financial shocks in terms of disaster and what could be the mitigation measures. A round of applause for Dr. Klaus, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mukund. If you need money, you call the banker. And thanks for having me here. Actually, when I listened to the presentations in the opening panel this morning, I was very impressed by the political vision, by the clear targets, by the speed of implementation, by the technical knowledge as well now on the panel, and by the open mentioning of remaining challenges. So I wondered, what can I add? I decided I'll give you indeed a very selective and account of what I regard as important for improving or maintaining financial resilience in metro or in public transport systems. So it's very selective, added with some European experience. And maybe before I start, of course, financial resilience is not the same as financial sustainability. We had this in the conclave before. So there are good reasons to subsidize public transport, metro systems. So resilience indeed is more about overcoming additional external shocks that stress the income, the revenues even further, and how to overcome these situations. And I would like to highlight 3 points. So first, of course, minimize the risks during construction phase. And we had this before, and we had some very impressive examples by my previous speakers, what you did in the design to take care of possible climate risks and other hazards in the future. So ensure that construction is robust enough to face disasters. And the good news is, this is at the heart of development banks as well. So funding for resilience is an important role, we assume, like other development banks. So it's not only KfW, of course. We require and we support climate risk analysis, and we are very much willing to finance additional measures wherever needed, or changes in design. This is in our joint interest. Your risks are in our books. So that's actually one of the reasons why a European banking regulation mandates banks, including private banks, to properly assess climate risks in their portfolios. So we have a joint undertaking there. And development bank, maybe that's the good news, we don't only assess, but we support. Second, manage risks during operation to achieve financial resilience. And I would like to focus on organization. My feeling is it's a very, very technical conference, and I'm economist by profession, so to be honest, I hardly have any clue of the technicalities you are mentioning, and it's highly interesting for me to learn it. However, I think organization is key if you want to deliver a proper service and for financial resilience. You will obviously know that. And there are two aspects. One is organizational integration. And I think that was mentioned in the first session as well. In Germany, actually, we have a system where municipal or regional traffic organizations form an association in public ownership, so mainly the municipality, sometimes the state, and sometimes, obviously, the companies take part. And they do a lot of things, of course, organize public transport, but let me highlight two. They collect traffic data across the different modes of transport, and they distribute the fare income according to ridership. So why is this important? Of course, we heard before organizational integration is needed to improve ridership numbers for metros and for the others, but at the same time, it makes you financially more resilient, basically by redundancy. If a metro fails in Germany, a lot of buses go immediately. This is actually, we have a lot of problems. 1,000 bridges in the rail system are not well maintained, so they are probably close to breakdown and all that. But this works pretty well. If a metro fails, then the buses immediately go. I'm not sure how the situation is in India, but after hearing about your challenge, how to organize, let's say, cross-modal organization, my feeling is this is key for improving financial resilience in many cities here in the country. And the second layer would be the organizational culture as such within a service provider. Again, I'm highly impressed by the technical and by the achievements. And I think it was Mr. Carola this morning mentioning the HR challenge, and telling us about the MBAs you need with technical knowledge. I wonder if he had in mind the MBA on organizational knowledge, on HR, let's say proper HR departments and all that. I can tell you from my own organization, we had a lot of shifts, basically to turn our organizational culture into one which is really a learning culture geared towards our customers, many of you sitting here, because we need to be quicker in our responses, and we cannot foresee the future. We cannot foresee every risk. Who ever could foresee a pandemic like this? So what we can do is be prepared and be quick in our reaction. And I found, for example, an example of the metro in Barcelona very interesting, where they introduced an innovative staffing model consisting of multifunctional roles. So basically concentrating on multiple skills so that the same person will work in the station and in the train. And this seemingly led to downtimes due to internal causes went down by 75%. So quite an efficiency gain, which in the end again will lead to financial resilience for those risks you cannot foresee. I think what you can do is make your organization as responsive as possible. And I found it very impressive what you mentioned with regard to the pandemic. Obviously, you have managed to be very quick in your responses, and this is quite impressive. Now, the third layer, of course, is what will happen if the risk is there, and you did whatever you could. In the end, it's about compensation. You need somebody to pay for it. In the pandemic, the case of the pandemic in Germany, ridership numbers went down 50%. We were lucky enough that at least in the first year, quite a few passengers had yearly or annual tickets. No? And not all of them left them immediately. So income didn't go down 50%, but something in the first year, I think it was around 80. But then the second year was even worse. Now, in the end, taxpayer, of course, had to pay. There's nothing you can do about it. So one of the reasons why we all know metros and other public transport systems are political animals. So we will all try to be in good terms with our public authorities. And probably every country needs to find its own way how to deal with these situations. In Germany, for example, the first COVID umbrellas were exclusively funded by the federal government because the states were basically didn't have funding neither. But now in the third year, when we are talking about subsidized tickets to basically regain speed in the public transport sectors, states and the federal government, after lengthy discussions, agreed on a 50-50 split. And you can imagine this takes time, these discussions, and there are no clear prescriptions, but I think there's no way out. Taxpayer needs to be ready to through the governments to pay them. Development banks might support with liquidity support, but in general, it's always better to avoid and to manage the risk than hope for compensation. So with this, thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. I think it's very clear that it has to be a multi-pronged approach if you have to look at the financial resilience of any urban transport systems. Increasing revenues, decreasing costs, having innovative financing, all things so that you can tide over bad weather. I think it's a really difficult task for the financial managers of metro rail companies or urban transport companies. But I guess we will need to think over it and plan something for the future. So before I go to the next speaker, another question. I can already see some people meditating, so they can actually think more on the questions. You mentioned about Kolkata Metro that it has the deepest metro station in India. How deep is it? 33 meters. I thought Delhi Metro had something like 35 meters. No. Okay. So my question is, which is the deepest metro station in the world? Any answers? Is it Moscow or St. Petersburg? Kiev. So what all are the aspects? Why do we make metro stations so deep? There could be political reasons, there could be other reasons, disaster risk reasons for that. But let us now actually get into the structural aspects, what goes into designing a metro station, what goes into the construction part. Why do we have big metro stations? Why do we have small metro stations? This is a question which we have been, dealing with for many years, and Mahua is still, I guess, dealing with it, because there is a lot of station cost which goes in these stations. So our next speaker on the panel is a very experienced officer from the Delhi Metro, and Ms. Rashmi Bhardwaj. She's a structural engineer, and she has worked on almost 70 underground stations as far as the designing of that is concerned. And it'll be really interesting to hear her tell us what goes into the designing of metro stations. So big round of applause for Ms. Rashmi Bhardwaj.
Okay, a very good afternoon to everyone. A small correction here, I'm actually an architect and an urban planner. That's all right. But yeah, it's true, I've worked with Delhi Metro for a very long time, and I've mostly been designing underground metro stations, some elevated too. So I'll be talking about designing for resilience. We've all understood that, resilience, economic resilience, and we heard about how to overcome situations like pandemic and other stresses that could be put on a metro station. But then how do we equip ourselves to actually handle those situations when those situations arises in terms of physical infrastructure that we have? So that will be the focus of my presentation. Now, resilience, we can define this. There are 4 types. First is absorptive capacity. Resilience is basically about increasing capacity to handle stress. So any kind of stress. Absorptive capacity could be handle more passengers. Suppose we design a system for a certain peak hour ridership, and then suddenly we see the number of people increasing. Could our system really handle that? Is it designed for that? Restorative capacity. Suppose there's a stress incident, suppose there is a fire emergency or there is some rush hour emergency. How do we restore the system back to its original functioning state? Then equitable access, of course, that goes without saying that in a city like Delhi, metro system has been, and now a network has spread all over the city, in fact, even to the suburbs. So when the alignment is designed, we ensure that there is access provided to all parts of city, all kinds of localities, all socio-economic catchments, and so that that is what actually makes the system more resilient. Because if you just looking at it this way, what is the most critical asset that any metro system has, or any transportation system for that matter? I would argue that our most critical asset is people. It is people who make the system resilient. So the more we diversify our customer base, the more kind of people we get, the farther we reach into the city, the deeper we go into the catchments. That is what actually makes, in terms of operations, our system more resilient. So during pandemic also, we have seen, there's a certain segment of people who returned very quickly to using metro because that was the most viable means of transport for them. On the other hand, there were certain pockets where, the ridership picked up very slowly because, like one of the speakers mentioned, they shifted to cars, and then, once you shift from metro to car, it's not easy to come back. So so equitable access is about that, and then adaptive capacity. Adaptive capacity is obviously ability to change in response to shocks and stresses. So, physical infrastructure, obviously, some parts of it changed. So we managed, like, make some entries where people enter only and make some where people exit only, make it unidirectional so there are no cross flows, so people are not coming too much in contact with each other when there was social distancing to be maintained. And similarly, organized transport elements like stairs and escalators, etc., to reduce social contact. So all that is adaptive capacity. But mostly I'll be talking about how to create absorptive capacity. Now we have a big network, about 400 kilometers, and of which there are interchanges. The screen is too small. We have about 30 interchange stations and interchange with railways, with ISBTs, with RRTS, and with airport also. So I would also say that creating more and more interchanges within the network, this also finally makes us more resilient because the system becomes more usable. You're giving more options to people. So that's a very important aspect of planning and also designing, creating good interchanges, because when there are good interchanges within the system and also with other transport systems, it encourages more users. And that is what in fact makes us more resilient. So I have just picked up some examples. Over the years, we have done a lot of metro stations, and some examples quickly came to my mind which can illustrate these points that I talked about. So first example I would like to talk about is Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. It's an underground station, and we commissioned it in 2010, the night before the Commonwealth Games were to start. I still remember when we were designing the station, there was this thought. The station was specifically developed to cater to the Commonwealth Games because Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium was the main venue for the opening ceremony and the ending ceremony. And it was expected to be jam-packed. And there were a lot of restrictions on other modes of movements and transport, and all the people except VIPs, they were expected to take the metro to reach the stadium and also to leave. So when we were designing this station, I still remember we made it extra big, of course. We had some traffic projections, but then we kind of, added extra factors, surge factors, etc., because we knew that there's going to be a lot of crowd. And also made it linear and created a lot of space so that, queuings, long queues can be done and people can be guided and there'll be no cross flows and there'll be no congestion. And with a lot of anticipation, we waited, okay, what's going to happen today? This is 3rd October, the day when the Commonwealth Games are going to be inaugurated. And we all just kept hoping that, okay, there won't be any stampede, there won't be any incident. And it was really very good. About 80,000 people, that is the capacity of the stadium, and then some more probably from around. It was vacated within 45 minutes, and our operations department, they also came up with a very good plan because they started running trains at a very slow pace and continuously. So instead of running trains at a fast pace and keeping the normal headway, which was designed 3 minutes or 4 minutes, the trains were just crawling very slowly and coming to platform one after the other and crawling, and that's how people could slowly board, and then the whole thing was managed. So this is a very good example in my mind of how we can handle situations where there is a surging of crowd, or there might be some other examples like that in all the cities, I'm sure, because there are convention centers or stadiums or places. So we need to keep spare capacity. When you're talking about building resilience, resilience is always built when we invest in the latent capacities, whether it is in terms of structure design or it is in terms of creating space that can handle more capacity, or it is in terms of providing systems like mechanical systems, electrical systems, or other things that can, if need, we take a little extra load. So resilience, to build that resilience, we have to invest first in the latent capacity when we are designing and planning the system. So yeah, that's just some views from the station. The next example I would take it is Ashram Underground Station. Here exactly the opposite thing happened. We had designed a station, we had planned rather a station which was normal underground station, and we also had a provision for an underpass over it, so it was little deeper. It was 3 levels deep because an underpass was proposed across perpendicular to it. Now what happened is we ran into some difficulties during the project stage. The portion that you see in yellow, it was all private land and it couldn't be acquired. We ran into some issues there. And the construction was done halfway through. The tunnels that you see on both sides, they were already constructed. So there was no way to stretch it and move it and still keep the same design. And it was a very difficult situation. So we came up with a solution. We turned the whole design like upside down in a way and redesigned it in the limited space. We just, let go of that yellow part and build the tunnel through it, because it was possible to build the tunnel. It was through TBM. But the station was reduced to about 50% of what it was originally was planned for, with the provision for underpass over it. And that underpass is now opened. Ashram Underpass, as we know, it goes above the Ashram Underground Station. So here again, the point I'm trying to illustrate is that because intrinsically in our design, we had that spare capacity to be able to squeeze. And if you look at the pictures, here are some pictures. So the last picture is of the platform of the newly built station, and it is exactly like any other standard platform. There is no change in the space that is available for passenger movement. That was the first priority, that even when we squeeze, the level of service that we are going to provide to passengers would remain the same. That's a critical aspect. And keeping that in mind, it was done. It was all shifted around, and we had to make so many adjustments in the constructions and designs, etc. But then we managed to fit in. So this is another aspect, that the design should have some spare capacity. Sometimes when we talk of rationalization, and then of course we are all always talking about cutting costs in all manners. I personally, as an architect, sometimes I feel that there's a threshold that we shouldn't cross, because you cross that threshold and you kind of compromise on the resilience in your design. We can obviously make everything very, very, very small, but then we are not sure, if later on it will be able to adapt or it will be able to change if the need comes. So that's an aspect that designers and planners should keep in mind, where the threshold is, and let's not cross that threshold and optimize within that boundary. The third example I want to show is an elevated station. So this is Punjabi Bagh intersection. We already had an elevated station built here in phase 2, and we built another one in phase 3, but they were not connected. Why they were not connected was because there were certain technical constraints. The alignments couldn't get closer, and there were some other issues. So we couldn't really integrate it at that stage. But then later on, when the operation started, we realized that there's a lot of user demand. A lot of people want to, use this interchange, and it's unfortunate that they have to get down to the road. And this is a very busy, probably one of the busiest intersections in Delhi. It has an underpass, it has a flyover, and it has a very busy road which connects North Delhi to West Delhi. So there was a lot of people who were wanting to use this interchange, but it was not available. So this was a very difficult and challenging piece of design as well as construction. We had a viaduct running and for one line, and we had the station, and then we just constructed another platform around the viaduct, existing viaduct. So what you see in green, the green train, that was the viaduct, and the platform which you see on the green train, that is what was constructed around the viaduct. And a lot of and most of it, 80% of this construction, or rather 85%, was done when the train was running on that line. So only during the time when we had to redo the electrification of the track, the operations were restricted for some time. Otherwise, this was just constructed, and then a passage was created, long and circuitous passage connecting it to existing station. Nevertheless, the interchange was made, and this has led to significant increase in passenger trips on both the lines after the interchange was opened. So this is how it looks like today. That big one is the existing station, and the long one, which you see perpendicular to the screen, that's the platform that was created on the running viaduct. So why all these difficult pieces of constructions like this interchange, or then the ashram interchange, which is integrated with an underpass? All this is in order to connect the network better, to provide more access to commuters, and to make it more easy for them to use it. And I think that is the first thing that we have to do when we are trying to build a resilient transport network. Because if the system is not attractive to the people who are eventually going to use it, we lose customers, and then the basic aim is defeated. So all kinds of operational resilience and the economic resilience and even the safety, because women using metro system, now that's a very big aspect. We started talking about it right in phase 1 when Dr. Sridharan decided to reserve few last coach for women in trains. But also while designing station, we always keep it in mind to make it more transparent, to have the spaces which have like eyes on you. That's a concept. It makes it safer. Women feel much, much more safer when they're in a public space where there are eyes all around them. Nobody likes to go into a space that has a lot of obstructions, visual obstructions or corners, or where you feel isolated. That's like, it hits a button, and it scares you even before it is scary. So while designing, we try to keep the ambience open and transparent, so that really attracts more passengers. And then eventually, to make a place safe, you have to have the entire cross section. You have to have women, you have to have old people, you have to have youngsters, not just one section. So when you have the entire section of people in a public place, it automatically becomes safer and more resilient for everyone. Now, this is another example, INA interchange. Okay, this is also a very interesting example. So we already had the yellow line constructed, and then we had to do the pink line. And we had two options here. The yellow line is underground, and the pink line, when we had to do, we could either go under it, which would make it very, very deep, or we could go over it. In this case, we decided to go over it and constructed a station here. This was also a very challenging piece of construction because you have to go very carefully over the existing tunnels. I don't know of any other examples where this has been done, probably the only example. And we managed to construct with just 0.5 meter earth cover over the tunnels, because again, this made for a very quick interchange between the existing station and the old station. So that's the first photograph, is the old station platform. Second is the interchange passage, and third is the new platform. And it's a very thriving interchange today. So, that's another thing, how convenient it is for people. How much do they really have to walk? We try to cut it short, make it easier, quicker for them to get through an interchange, makes it more attractive. This is another example which it's under construction right now. So we are integrating our structures. Also, we have integrated many with flyovers. Here's an underground box, which is also being integrated with a road that will come above. Okay, I have 2 more minutes. Okay, I'll finish. So, apart from this, now there's another very important aspect of resilience, and which is the fire safety. I'll talk very briefly about it. It was a concern for a very, very long time that in India we did not have any guidelines to design and plan our metro stations. And after 2010, there has just been a boom in construction, metro construction in India. Now there are over 20 metro corporations. So we need some design guidelines which, really are suitable for our own conditions. So far, we were using international guidelines. They're good, fine, but then there are many things which were, because see, design guideline is always linked to a code. Then a code is always linked to the construction industry and manufacturing industry. So one flows from the other. If you follow a guideline which is like not indigenous, you can eventually end up importing everything that you need to build that system, because that's how it is certified. So this thought started that no, we must have indigenous guidelines, at least for fire safety design. And then in 2016, they were incorporated into National Building Code. And further talks are also there that we should develop Indian codes for all rail-based systems and their components, because this is directly, then it is linked to the Make in India initiative. And that makes us more resilient, because one of the speakers, I think MD from Hyderabad Metro, he talked about breakdown of supply chain during pandemic. And to prevent that from happening, it could happen due to so many reasons, due to pandemics, due to wars, due to so many unforeseen reasons. We must have more and more resilience on Indian things. And in construction, civil construction at least, we are quite self-sufficient, but then there are other parts, and rolling stock also now, but there are other parts that also need to be taken into it. So National Building Code now has complete guidelines on fire and life safety of metro stations as well as tunnels. And we hope to, it's a work in progress, and we hope that we'll continue that work and come up with more codes. Thank you. I'll stop there. There's more, but I'll stop there.
Okay. That was a very interesting insight. And I recall, how many of you have traveled extensively on London Metro? Some of the stations, you hear the announcements, the doors on the last two coaches will not open, or doors on the front two coaches will not open, or front one coach will not open. That is because when they designed it long back, someone said oldest metro, and they had to expand. So some of the stations they could expand, some of the stations they couldn't. So that is, innovation in the sense how to actually, use the expand the stations. But yes, this is a challenge. We have to foresee much beyond the immediate future, because these are investments for 100 years. And very useful insights by Rashmi. I always thought that you are a civil engineer because in our interaction, but you are much beyond. So that yes. So our next speaker is Professor Gaurav Srivastav from the IIT Gandhinagar, and he is a civil engineer. And I have had very interesting interaction with him in his lab. He has an indoor lab and he has an outdoor lab. And in the outdoor lab, there is a huge building which he puts on fire, and then he douses that. So, Professor Srivastav, may I call upon you to tell us about your experience?
Thanks a lot, and thanks, Dr. Sinha, for having me here. So as I've been hearing about resilience and risks, I get reminded of a book I was reading by Dr. Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel laureate, and he's written a very well-known book called Thinking Slow and Fast. So he talks about how do you assess risk. So he says that first you note down and jot down all the known variables, all the known unknowns, and then you think about all the unknown unknowns. Okay, which of course is anyone's guess how that would go around. So I'm going to add a phrase to our discussions here, something which is related to a conference that we did at IIT Gandhinagar in 2014. And the phrase is design for a billion. Okay. So we've been talking about mass transport systems in terms of metros. And I feel, and I think many of us would feel similarly, that the challenges that we have in India are of a totally different scale and requires sometimes and many times totally different solutions to a problem being faced outside India purely because of the scale. Okay. And when we did this conference, of course, that was more oriented towards product design being done by a design department. But the ideas there were also similar. That you make a cell phone which is to be used by a billion people of a different economic background versus you make a mobile phone which is used by a few. There is a lot of difference. Right? Similarly, perception of risks can be different for different people. And this idea we will come back to as I end. And of course, this probably is old data, but what I'm trying to get around saying is that all our metros combined and even individual metros, as we keep on building, which is of course necessary for providing a sustainable means of public transport. Our capacities are increasing and the riderships are increasing day by day, year on year, right? And in our lab, we do a lot of testing on building materials and other things, including design, etc. We have a 3-story structure, which Dr. Sinha mentioned. We create different fire scenarios and we set it on fire. We collect a lot of data and we see how different materials are behaving, and then we try to do some inferences. But today, what I would like to talk about is a very interesting project that we recently started. It is on the egress design or assessment of escape capacities for metro stations specifically. All of you would be aware that there are multiple factors. First, of course, is the human factors. Then there are within human factors, you can say that there are visible factors like the height, the diameter of a person, if I may call it that way. So gym going people, please don't get offended for that. The weight of the person. But now adding in the indigenization factors to it, the way we dress is quite different, right? And the way we dress will change our walking speeds. The way our cultural fabric is a bit different. So that will change our behavior when we see a risk. Okay, and even the way we respond to a risk as a social body is different to what is normally considered normal. And many of these softwares that we use for escape design or egress design are very good software, but the basic human data is not Indian. Okay, and in fact, for one of the most used software, I was talking to the persons. I mean, it's a US national lab which has developed that. And they were saying that the data that is there by default was collected by the US Army in the 1920s during the First World War. Okay, so I don't know I am sure they must have updated it, but just to give you an idea that how we are using these software. So what we decided was we should try to collect data from India, and we should try to see how the results are same or different. And of course, all of these results have a direct impact on the escape capacities. Not just for the new metros, but also for the old metros, because the issue of expansion comes in. Right? Then there are, of course, engineering and design related things. Right? And one more aspect is multi-use of facilities. So metro stations are now no longer only metro stations. You have commercial outlets, you have VFS and other facilities which also attract a large number of people. So I would not go into equations. That is a subject for another day. 27th of next month, we are having a small workshop on this specific topic, and I would request all of your participations. Please reach out to me. I would also reach out to you, where we will discuss these things in more detail. But the idea is that we have human parameters, we have agent to agent or human to human interaction. How a human would perceive a fire, how they would want to be close or far away from the next person, how would they want to be close or far away from the wall, All of these things factor into the software calculations. How do they respond to the fire? And all of these things eventually become a parameter of the model. And what we are trying to do is to collect data to validate these parameters and to see which parameter is most critical. Okay. And again, some preliminary results. What we're able to do is put some agents in a simulation and then see how they evacuate, what is the time, that kind of things. I would not go into details, but and these are with fire, without fire scenarios. One can have multiple scenarios. There are a lot of safety factors, safety features which are there, which can all be included in terms of smoke mitigation and escape routes and other things. Okay. So now if we come back to that idea of design for a billion, let me ask a question at the end. Among so many factors, which one do you think is most critical for people to escape? What would give you so what we are doing is we are putting a lot of people in a room, let's say, or in a metro station, and we are allowing them to escape, and we are measuring the time it takes for them to escape. So the factors here are like human body size, their walking speed, this, that. So which one do you think would affect the results the most? Distance from the exit, yes. Visibility. Let's say if everything is clear, no fires. Sorry? Age. So can I say you are saying age, which is linking with walking speed in a way? So I mean, a very intuitive answer to that question is walking speed of a person. Probably is the most important parameter. But what we have found in some of our simulations is a bit not counterintuitive, but at least very revealing for me. The most important parameter was the number of people. I mean, walking speed and everything comes later, but number of people comes first. And that is where we are trying to address design for a billion, because for us, number of people inside that facility is the most critical. And how does that affect our design, our thinking? That is the challenge that we want to solve. So with that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srivastav, and I would encourage all our viewers here to join the workshop, which is on 27th of November. Probably, if you can reach out to me, I can share, or you can reach out to Srivastav sir. And it's very interesting to actually listen to his detailed analysis. So thank you very much for the insight. Now I move to our next speaker, who has been on both sides of the fence. He was in the railways for many, many years, and then he decided to leave one day and jump into the private sector. It was sudden, I guess. I have heard it was suddenly he's moved out of the private sector, and there also he has done quite well. So now he works for Sistra, Mr. Sandeep Fuller, and Sistra is in the consultancy space. I think maybe one of the biggest, players in the consulting space, at least in India. So over to you, sir, for your insights.
Thank you, Mukund. And before I commence, just a few words. I have, on my own, and this may or may not be acceptable to everybody. I say that the consultant is the person who sits on the third side of the table. And I have a logic to it, because I've been with the government for a substantial number of years. I've been one of the founders of Delhi Metro. I've been the first depot manager of Shastri Park way back in 2000, 2001. I have been in the private sector for more than 10 years. And now on the consultancy side, one of the things that I see most frequently is that I am the person who is able to understand the travails, the pains, and the expectations of both sides of the table. So I am sitting on the third side. Having said that, when you sit on the third side, you also see a lot of things differently. And Yes, of course. I mean, sometimes you end up absorbing the pain of both sides because, I mean, as a consultant, one of the key words in your working is that you have to be an excellent listener. You may or may not speak too much. Having said that, what I have tried to do is that I've tried to put together some items which I feel are, as an observation on a global level, very pertinent to resilience. And of course, I was brief on the role of the consultant, and it's up for debate as to whether anybody would like to use it or not. Now, in the definition of resilience that has been going on so far, I want to add another dimension, and that is the resilience, a capability to manage and upgrade, modify, improve over time. And as GM Calcutta Metro had already mentioned, Calcutta Metro was really designed in a very resilient manner. It is still able to do a lot of work without those many inputs going into it. And I'm talking of the old Kolkata Metro. I'm not talking of the newer ones, which are, constructed after a lot of hindsight, after a lot of learning from that first metro line, which still works. And I've also spent 7 years in Calcutta, post railways, and I have worked on the Calcutta Metro. As a matter of fact, the track under the Hooghly was laid by Texmaco, and I was the managing director of Texmaco at that time. And let me tell you, making a track on a tunnel through a river is not very easy. It slopes, the slopes are very high, and you try to do a casting, and it all flows down into the center of the river. And the worst part is that you can pump your concrete only from one end. So 300 meters, 400 meters of pumping. It was a nightmare, but yes, we did manage to complete it. Now, by way of an introduction, I have just added a new dimension to resilience. Resilience is your capability to even change and upgrade yourself with time. And having said that, what are the cornerstones? Now, this everybody accepts, not everybody practices, but the biggest cornerstone of any resilience is your passenger centricity. They are the key to your system, and if you don't have them, you're not there. And this is the first thing which all of us must acknowledge. The second one we must acknowledge is that whatever we do there's nothing more constant than change, and the change here is the continuous technical improvement, and whatever we do should be upgradable at all points of time. Cost effectiveness, besides a point, we do not have too much of money to be spending on fancy structures or fancy things, so we have to be cost effective. And of course, the latest buzzword, which is sustainability. So we have to learn to go into sustainability in a much more deeper way than what we normally do in the conventional sense. I mean, it's not a theory. As far as metros is concerned, sustainability has to be a practice. Having said that, I'm going to go through the next few slides where some of the good resilient designs have come up over a matter of time and perhaps could be the designs of the future. So I'm just going through them, briefly explain them to you. The first one is the underground station. Now, underground stations, as you see conventionally, are, about 250 odd meters long, about 22 odd meters wide. They're quite large, and they have a lot of technical rooms on either side and things like that. Now, on Chennai Metro, Chennai Metro wanted to make the underground stations smaller, and they were able to cut the size of the metro station to 144 meters by 18 meters, while having everything that was there in the earlier station, which includes all the system rooms, and all the functional redundancies were met with using half the number of major equipment, using variable frequency drives, eliminating the under platform exhausts, things like that, and major reduction in civil cost, as there was absolutely no ancillary building at all. This has been implemented. It is there in the phase 2 of Chennai Metro. So anybody who wants to see the station design is welcome to go and do that. The capex and opex reduction is phenomenal, 20 to 25 crores per station over a life cycle. The next one is a station using a U-girder. Now, one of the pains of any metro, specifically when you're going towards commissioning, is that you want to run a train, but the work on the platform is still going on. So you cannot run a train. So you can't do your trials, you can't do your commissioning. Everybody would have wished we could make the stations independent of the viaduct. There have been some attempts, some successful ones too, but there is a possibility that you use a standard U-girder, use its walkway as the platform edge, install your PSDs later on that, and keep completing your stations while you're running your trains, you're doing your trials, you're doing your signaling interfaces, doing all that. So this is one of the type of elevated stations which would come up in the future. One other advantage is that a majority of the tier 2 cities right now are going for 3-car trains. We do not know which of these tier 2 cities subsequently will become a tier 1 and will have a 6-car train. Now, changing from a 3-car station to a 6-car station, if you use a U-girder as the centerpiece of your station, is only one night block. You just have to replace 2 girders and keep constructing your station therewith and upgrade it to 6 cars from 3 cars. We've all been seeing a number of U-girders coming up everywhere. These are, of course, very big advantage, because when you use U-girders, you are actually reducing the height of your train, you are reducing the moments, you are reducing the structures, you're reducing a lot of things. And the U-girders work out to be 20% more cost effective. The lateral barriers work as automatic noise barriers. You don't need to put noise barriers. You don't need to put parapets. You don't need to put walkways. You don't need anti-derailment measures, because the U-girder itself is a derailment containment zone. These are some photographs of U-girders which have been used around the world. Of course, Delhi Metro has been using it extensively. Now, most of the metros are going to U-girders, but platforms using U-girders is something which is still to catch on. On the systems side, I will first take up rolling stock, as I used to be Deputy CEO Rolling Stock Delhi Metro, and made the RS1 tender document, which was made literally out of scratch, because we did not know what a modern metro looked like. We had to borrow a number of specifications, consult a lot of people, see a lot of metros, and then come up with those specifications. Now, having said that, there are many things in those specifications which are flawed and which need to be corrected. Some of them are still there, and it stands to us to correct them, because what has gone into it may not be as resilient as what is available nowadays. One of the prime items which always keeps coming to my mind because of the fire loads and what happens if there's a fire is the use of plywood and glass fiber for insulation. Both of these are materials which are not materials of the future, which render your systems difficult to manage in case of various types of calamities like floods as well as fires. They have to be modified, they have to be upgraded, and you have to move on to composites. Of course, electronics, communications, as well as data safety like things are on the upsurge. So whatever rolling stocks get designed should have all of these, should have sort of a artificial intelligence built into them, so that in due course of time you do a predictive maintenance way ahead of time. And one of the other items which I have found missing in some of the rolling stock specifications, which should be there, and that is that one of the very important passenger comfort element, that is the element of jerk, seems to be ignored. I would request everybody who is operating rolling stocks to at least do a measurement of this once in a while, because many of the traction systems do not control jerk. And incidentally, I did this experiment this time in London Underground about a month back, and nearly no rolling stock of London Underground controls jerk. No. NO. Signaling, the key problems. CBTC is custom designed to each metro system. And this perhaps will be one of the biggest problems. And I know that Delhi Metro has been developing a CBTC system. It would be great if we could have a CBTC system which is on an open platform and which everybody is able to, utilize more freely. Upgrade the systems to this as it comes along. And I believe all of us should support or should cajole Delhi Metro to do all this a bit quicker. I have another suggestion which I just want to give, that in case the ultimate traffic requirements for tier 2, maybe tier 2.5, tier 3 cities is not going to be lesser than 5 minutes headway, then they can think of going for simpler signaling systems and maybe upgrade later whenever they want to increase the frequencies, because CBTC may end up to be a very costly and ineffective or partially effective system for them. Data encryption and security is going to be one of the very major challenges. We have not had instances, but just think of an instance when somebody gets into your control system network and turns off the signals coming from one of the trains. You will have mayhem on the system. And this will always stay one of the bigger challenges, but Indians are supposed to be the best software in software, so perhaps we would be able to sort it out before it happens. But it must be kept in mind. On the AFC side, I don't know, but the evolution is going through in various directions. So here, the middle part of the slide is only to establish that there has to be an evolution, but the key here is to go for a technology which is simple, easily available, and upgradable, as well as economical. We try to go for very complex systems. I do not think AFC is a thing which should be made as complicated as that. Power supply, use of green power, generate green power wherever you can. The overhead equipment and third rail are needing to be better designed. But one of the main issues which I found and which will become very severe as the metro systems grow old is the lack of proper grounding and surge protection, which all of a sudden will make you see a lot of small fires in station control rooms, etc. I do not know when that trend will set in, but set in it sure will if we do not pay adequate attention to the earthing and grounding, which is the least respected part of metro engineering as of now. DC traction, use of inverters should also be looked at, because metros which do not go to a PHP DT beyond 60,000 even in the foreseeable 50 years should ideally be run on DC traction. Operationally, one of the major problems which comes up with most of the metros is that operational requirements are not really looked at during the design stage. They seem to grow as the metro comes near its commissioning. This has to be avoided, and operational requirements should be looked at. Operational, maintenance planning, abnormal scenarios, all this must be looked at the design stage. Otherwise, the modifications required at a later date prior to commissioning become very cumbersome and very complex, very complicated. Highest priority, of course, is needed to be given to intermodal integration. There are so many intermodal points, 13 I believe, on Delhi Metro, but in many of them the integration is not complete. I mean, if you want a person on a wheelchair to go from one mode to the other, he cannot. Until you cannot have a person on a wheelchair going from one mode of transport to another, please refer to your intermodal integration as incomplete. It is not complete. Last, I thought I'd talk a bit about the role of consultants. Now, what the consultants bring to the table, there's a third side of the table that I have been referring to earlier, is that they have access to a number of global scenarios. They have a number of tested solutions and technologies available. And based on these experiences, they can provide alternative analysis and alternative solutions. So, whenever you have a consultant, please utilize him in the first place to do this, to come up with the better or the best solutions. Delhi Metro did it. The GC of the RS of the phase 1 did a lot of these alternative analysis before we arrived at what would finally be coming up. The consultant also gives you an independent view. They are neutral. They can provide a view which can be more acceptable to all the stakeholders. So that is an advantage which can always be used by the system everywhere. And the consultants also provide you with an integrated approach because they have experience in overall project delivery. And they can provide a robust system to dovetail testing and commissioning with passenger operations because they have been doing it a number of times and they have the right SOPs which they can offer to you and which you can utilize very effectively. With that, I close this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Some of very innovative insights. In fact, when I was in the ministry and we were standardizing the civil structures, we had this discussion on whether we should go for a box girder or a U girder. And I did not have so many points in favor of U girder, though I was personally in favor of U girder. But had I you on the third side of the table, probably I would have succeeded in getting only U girder design. But keeping that aside, I mean, a lot of insights you have given, and definitely we found it interesting. And you did also mention about CBTC. I mean, we need to have a standard. We have these days. We have. You mentioned somewhere UTO and driverless trains are there. In fact, I remember when long time back, I was in Singapore with my 6-year-old daughter, and I told her, "Look, this train doesn't have a driver." She told me, "Then can't someone just take away the train away? It can be stolen." It can't be stolen. We all know that. But that is the question which comes to a mind of a young mind, and it does bring us to the next part of our presentation, and which is a very interesting part, is that today our metro systems are completely integrated through softwares. You talk about CBTC, it's a software. You talk about within the coach itself, the each and every part has to speak to the other part. When the door opens, when the door closes, there's so many things. When the brakes apply, I mean, can the door be opened when the brakes are applied or brakes are not? I mean, there are a lot of things within this integrated system. And that brings us to the next question about cybersecurity. And we have a very experienced speaker for this. He has been on Delhi Metro. He's worked on Kochi Metro, he's worked on Mumbai Metro, and now he's in Mumbai Metro operations. Mr. D.K. Sinha, he's CEO of the operations O&M of Mumbai Metro Line 3, which is being taken care of by Delhi Metro Rail Corporation. So he's back to Delhi Metro Rail Corporation now. So, Mr. D.K. Sinha, your insights into cyber resilience, which is, I think, one of the very important topics of current day discussion on resilience and preparedness for cyber crimes. Table is yours.
Thank you, Mukund. My co-panelists and distinguished delegates. Cybersecurity is a very hot topic. Now, it is getting very relevant now because as Mukund said, that the way the computer system's footprint is increasing in our railway network. Now you see it in the driver's cabin, you see it in the control center. You want a online maintenance, you have on rolling stock, you want data downloaded in real time, and you want to take action. So all of this is happening now, and this will happen more as UTO comes. And so this digitization is helping operation in so many ways, in helping maintenance. Now, the ticketing system, nobody wants to go and buy tickets, even in railways. Now, nobody, I remember when I was in railways, this passenger system, PRS system was opened by railway minister. It was such a big thing. Today, if you go to the PRS system, there is nobody. So everybody is doing it online. So things have changed a lot, and of course, metro, it is changing still in a much faster pace. Now, the general concept is that the computer system which railways are having is a closed system. This is our general perception, and this is how we are doing the safety assessment as of now. But increasingly, this is not a stand which you can take. So the closed network assessment is no longer sustainable, no longer realistic. So this is the scenario we are in, and though today the attacks are rare, cyber attacks are rare, but as things are moving, you would see more and more of them. Now, just let me give you some examples of breaches which has happened. Now, there was a DDoS, distributed denial of service attack on Swedish transportation network. Their customer during this time were unable to make reservations or get updates about delays. Then there was a ransomware attack in March 22 in Italian State Railway. Again, they were unable to buy tickets there. Then there was one case in Danish Railway in October 22 when the service was disrupted. Now, this was disrupted not because of an attack on the railway system, but on another IT system. The drivers there were using a mobile app by which they were getting information about the speed restriction on the station, speed restriction on the section, and works happening in the section. So when the attack happened, the IT supplier closed his computer, and then trains could not be moved because drivers were not aware what was happening in the section. So the cyber attack can happen in many ways. It's not like that it will happen in a predictive way. Many of them can be a smaller attack, and by which the attacker would know about the system, and then he can devise more attacks. So this is a scenario. Like post-Ukraine war, DDoS attack on East European railways have been reported, mostly affecting their ticketing services. Now, so if we come to our requirements, what is that an operator requires? So we require a secured connection for onboard maintenance and connection for onboard maintenance in real time. Secured communication between train and trackside. This is where this CBTC comes in picture, because CBTC is communicating from trackside to train through a Wi-Fi network, which is normally an open network. So what kind of encryption it is required? So that is a question which would be uppermost in everybody's mind. And now the way we are developing now, the use of IoT has started, Internet of Things. Now, so we are right now collecting data from sensors. So a lot of data we are collecting, but as things grow in the industry and other sectors, we would also like to put command and control. As of today, you would know that from your mobile, you can control your room, in your house's fridge temperature. All this is happening already. So as it grows in railways also, you would like to do that. So with that scenario, just imagine what kind of cybersecurity would be required. Same way, driverless trains will have more attack surface, because a lot of communication now is happening. When the driver is replaced, a lot of things are happening online. So these are the requirements which we would like to have. But the another part which operators would be looking into it is the criticality of the response time. So when you are building these cybersecurity features, will it affect our response time? Because all our railway systems, when they're working on a particular response time. So for example, the data which is going from the trackside to train, if it goes beyond, say, 3 seconds, that data is dumped. So it has to be within 3 seconds. So can I build a cybersecurity feature where I can contain this response time? So these are the operators' requirement would come. Now, let me tell you about some challenges which we have today. Now, railway system is typically a long lead kind of a thing. So it is a lifetime of 10 to 20 years. Normally, what we say is a freeze and design. So railway, we have a metro, we would like to freeze it for 15 years. Rolling stock we have, the rolling stock is there for 15 years. The signaling system is there for 20 years. So that kind of a freeze when we have, this is not what is happening in the IT system. IT system, the changes is 3 to 5 years. You would know about patches. Everybody would be using patches in your OS or whatever. But in railway system, there are no patches. If you want to put a patch, you have to do a safety assessment, you have to take a downtime, and then you have to put it. So these are incompatibility between the IT system, which is now we are incorporating, and railway system, which is generally a OT system, operation technology. Now, as of today, the standards in cybersecurity is also evolving. So this is an area which is upcoming now. And another big challenge is that we don't have much historical data about these cybersecurity attacks. So we don't have business model for insurance. So insurance in this area is also not there. So that particular part is also missing now. Now, so these are some things which now we have to take up. So framework for building the resilience. So some of the points I have brought out here. Now, the risk analysis has to be done from day one, as some of the speakers previously also said, that it cannot be done later on. You can't be done at the time of operation. So it has to be done during the design. So that is what one has to do it. And all the key processes along the entire value chain has to be seen. The systems which are coming from the component supplier, then there is an integrator, then there is an operator, then there is a customer. So all of them are contributing by their behavior into this cybersecurity thing. So all this part has to be seen. Who is contributing? What is what contribution which particular party is making? So that has to be made part of this analysis from the beginning. And of course, you have to secure the weakest link, and then defense in depth. So you have to have multiple defenses against these cyber attacks. Now, in railways we have legacy product. So there we can only have mitigation, and for newer product we have to have built-in cybersecurity features. Then some operational hygiene which we have to maintain: grant least privileges, avoid redundancies and overlapping functionalities. Then AAA, authenticate, and accounting. Then servers, typically for ticketing and all, we need to do some load balancing, mirroring. There, as of today, one of the standards which is getting used is IEC 62443. This is a standard normally for industrial automation and control system, and that has now been adapted in a railway specific standard, which is Railway Sunelec TS 50701. So these standards have come. There is another standard which is getting made, which will come in another 1 year or so. So, but these guidelines are available where when we are doing the product development, these standards can be used. Then another important part will be a business continuity planning. If mission critical system go down, what we have to do, and this has to be a continuing task. It has to be done in collaboration with suppliers, customers, and regulatory agencies. Then we since software is something, a live product. And every time you have hackers who are phishing and learning about your system. So and a regular auditing has to be required, and a regular training has to be required. And of course, as I said before, we have to have insurance. So that would come when we have more data about these cyber attacks. Few of the best practices which I have seen in public domain, that CBTC OEMs now have started system and product development with inbuilt cybersecurity features. Some of the vendors are already providing this. One I know of, Alstom Arbalis 400, they say that now they have developed as per that IC guidelines. Then IT and OT systems are also getting separated. So one example is in Tel Aviv, what they have done in the red line, they have separated their IT and OT system through a unidirectional gateway. So the data would go only from the OT system, that is railway system, to the IT system. It can't come from the IT system to the OT system. So that is one. Even I learned from my friends in NCRTC now, when they have started, they have also segregated that IT and OT system. So these are good practices. And today, all the metros, we are having a cybersecurity policy at our organization level, and we are having regular auditing. This is also a very important step which people are already doing. And we are also having a centralized database. NCIIPC is keeping these database. So these database also would help us to face this challenge combinedly. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Very insightful, and I guess a lot of points which were mentioned, we have to be very careful because once a cyber attack comes, there could be huge losses. So that brings us to the end of our very interesting session, I would say, and we still have time before dinner for question answers. So if you have any questions, please stand up and shout out. Yes, sir, please. And we have mics for the panelists, and if you can also indicate your name and from which organization you are and whom the question is directed to.
Yeah, hello, I am Vimal Chopra. I represent a company called International Copper Association, headquartered in Washington, DC. Well, the question is about copper as well as about the safety aspects. And first of all, the question is to Mr. Uday Kumar Reddy, because I was there when the Calcutta Metro was being. I passed out from college and I was there, and I have suffered also, but it was a great feat. When you tell me 40 years later also, it's really a really great engineering feat. So safety aspects, what I'm talking about are basically, you see, when we have talked of the civil construction, architectural and mechanical all things, but I go a bit deeper into that. I mean, I would say that the basic safety would be, I'm talking of electrical safety, of course, I'm an electrical engineer. So it would start from the basic components. Like, of course, copper is one, where, in US and all, they have changed over to copper. Second thing about the wires also, you talked about FRLS wires. That's really a very great, interesting point, because FRLS wires were not in use in India that time. In fact, now,
sir, can you please be brief?
Yeah,
Sir, what is your
question? Now, when we have got to this point of 40 years, it's still working. Now, are the metros seeing something that if they have to improve or increase the capacity of that, what do they do about the basic, the electrical equipment specifically? The fires arising out of electrical equipment are much more. Now the standard is ZHLS, which is zero halogen, low smoke, which has come out in 2018 only. So even the consultants also, that was a very nice point which Fuller Saab also said about electrical and the basic grounding and earthing. And in fact, the answer to ma'am is there. There is a code of which I have worked on also, National Electric Code of India, which is latest 2023 January it has been released. So that talks of all the codes. So are we considering? My question is basically: are the metros considering that, seeing the safety of the people? Are we considering that at the root level, ground level, whether next 10 years these equipment are suited for these higher capacity of the current capacity or the capacity of the trains? Are we really looking towards that aspect?
Thank you, sir. We got your question and your insights. Can we have a few more questions before we move on to the answers? Any more questions, please? Yes.
Sir, I am R.S. Rao, CGM project, Delhi Metro. My question is, sir, to PUK Reddy, sir. Because, sir, it is actually under the perennial river and deep river and a lot of water ahead. Any special measures taken for the sealing of the joints that we normally use the gaskets? So that is my question. And any extra O&F measures, sir? Basically, it is for the seepage.
Thank you. Any more?
One more question to KVB Reddy, sir.
Okay.
So what is the concession period, sir, for this Hyderabad Metro?
99 years, no? 69 years, okay.
Due to this COVID, is it increased?
Not yet. Only 6 months is increased because of the lockdown period is increased.
What is the revenue, sir, actually, while designing the project, basically, initially while calling the tender? So what is the annual revenue expected, basically anticipated, due to the fair box or non-fair box, basically, to sustain this PPP model?
Okay. So we have that. Any more questions? Yeah.
I'm Dhruvaksh. I'm a correspondent for Business Standard. My question is to Mr. KVB Reddy. You had talked about a reserve fund in your suggestions for during your presentation. Just wanted to get an understanding of earlier in the morning, Minister Puri was saying that a larger number of metro projects are now becoming viable, more and more viable. And a conversation then ensued about more and more metro projects going to PPP now that the viability factor is increasing. So just wanted to get an understanding from you about this reserve fund. Has there been any sort of serious discussion about it? How has the government taken the proposal, and are there more conversations about this reserve common fund for all metro organizations?
Okay, thank you. We'll take one more last question. Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Akansha Bhardwaj and I'm a PhD scholar at IIT Delhi. This question is for Rashmi ma'am. I wanted to know because you were talking about resilience and also talking about on how people switch from metros to cars, and we have other segments of people who cannot afford metros. So are we also talking about retaining those people coming back to metros? So how do we retain it through the design aspect? So that is my question to you.
Okay, one last question. Okay, yes, that's the last one. Yes, please.
Sir, myself Vikas Ranjan, GM Property Development from Patna Metro. I have one question with KBK Reddy, sir. What are the measures have been taken for non-fare box revenue?
Okay. So I think I'll start with Mr. KVB Reddy, you have got, I think, 3 questions. One is the non-fare box revenue, other is the reserve fund, and third one is
Concession period.
Yeah, concession period. So
Yeah.
Because he has to leave, so I think after answering, I think you can.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah.
The first thing is the concession period is 60 years. In 2 phases, 35 years plus 25 years, 35 years extendable by another 25. That's how it's 60 years. So we signed agreement in 2012. So 2072 is the last year of that. And during the COVID only lockdown period of 169 days, that has been extended for the concession period. And that's all. That's nothing more than that. Coming to the second question is, and the reserve fund. This is a suggestion I wanted to give it to
the entire forum through this conclave, and the government need to consider this going forward, because PPPs are treated as a different, I think, projects. So that's whereas the government metros, they do have the full support, sovereign guarantees are there in terms of the financing also. But this gap, we need to fill it up. The third question is non-fare. So Patna. The non-fare box revenue as planned in the financial modeling is almost 40 to 45% should come from the non-fare to subsidize the fare. In actual terms, we have been given some TOD lands to develop that real estate, but on a license period. With the license of the land for the 35 years plus 25 years, no financial institution is coming for support in terms of the debt. So that is the biggest challenge we have faced. Now government has given, after giving this direct 60 years relaxation for these lands under lease model, the private developers are coming and they are taking the lands and building these things. And the other modes of non-fare revenue is advertisements, and we have a lot of advertisement space that were given to us, and then station naming rights. These are the multiple things, 3-4 things we are doing it. Currently, we are at about 20 to 22% of our fare revenue box. We still need to improve on that.
22% is quite high. So we'll have to, leave Mr. Reddy because he has to take a flight. So thank you very much. Before I ask the other speakers to answer, I think we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Mukund. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
And there's a small memento from Mahua. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question, Ms. Rashmi, how do we retain the passengers?
Yeah. So Akanksha, right? Yeah. So as I understand your question is that how do we retain passengers who once leave the network and switch to other modes of transport? Well, it's not an easy thing. So the best thing to do is to try and retain them as much as possible. Now there are various theories about it. One is like, you catch them early. That's one strategy. So aim at college students and still, because it's also a cultural habit to use public transport. And in Delhi, there are a lot of debates about it because using public transport is not really a cultural habit with people. As soon as you can afford a car, everyone likes to switch to a car. That is the habit. So to break it, reverse it, first is that, you try and make it attractive. It's not really attractive in the sense that, it's also a social statement. Okay, how did you travel here? Did you come by car? Do you have a chauffeur, or you drive yourself, or did you take the metro? So there are implications of all these things, right? So it takes time for a society to, become more equitable in that sense. So once we have a mix of more women into workforce, more youngsters graduating into workforce, youngsters who have used public transport, this cultural shift will happen automatically. And that's the best way to get public transport, to become a norm rather than the exception. So I guess we should see that change happening, and we are seeing it after COVID. We have seen it because, it's something that's just there. If you don't have your own private car or other means or somebody to drop you, what do? You have to go to work or you have to go somewhere. So metro is there and it's very reliable, it's safe, even late at night or early in the morning, and then you won't be. So it's happening. It's not that it's not happening, but it should really, we'll see more of it. And the majority of workforce which can afford car but will use metro probably in next 10-15 years, when those people, who are in, like I said, youngsters, and they come to that stage where they have that option. Okay, I've used metro for past 10 years. Now what do I do? Do I switch to a car or do I continue metro? So I hope that we'll be able to retain them.
That's a perpetual question and very well articulated, I guess. I think a new aspect to that. Thank you very much. I come to the last two questions. The maybe I'll request Mr. Reddy first regarding the sealing part. How do you seal and prevent the waters from coming inside the tunnel? Any special design? And then after that, I'll go to the copper question on copper.
Regarding the sealing part, I mean, in any such construction activity, once you have a leak, you can never stop a leak. So the entire thing is, while you are constructing it, you should be doing it flawless. I think briefly I touched up in that. I mean, in the presentation, I had given a few things which had gone into this. More than that, I think I am not competent enough to give you. But like, if you want something in particular, I can get back to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And definitely, there must have been measures taken to see that things don't happen. There are a lot of tunnels in the world which are below the river, so technology must be there. So for the copper question on copper, can I turn to Mr. Fuller, and if you permit, this was
actually on the total safety aspect,
yeah.
Electrical safety.
Yeah.
In the next 10, 12 years, keeping the technologies, the products, and the materials which are used in Germany, even in the panels, I've been to Germany. So they are using the panels also. They are using ZHLS cables, which are zero halogen, no smoke. To explain more, why does a person die in a fire?
Yeah, so I think what we can do is let him answer your question, and then we can interact.
I'll answer that.
Yeah,
I'll answer that.
We can take it up in the dinner time, but let him answer first.
I'll answer that for you. All the cable replacements that are taking place in Kolkata Metro, the old metro also, I have been part of some of those works, so I know they are all using FRLS-ZH only. Yes. Yes, but the latest replacements of all the control cables, which is the bulk of the cables which are getting control, even the electric panels. And as far as the rating of the panels and all are concerned, Calcutta Metro is regularly going in for upgrades because it's a DC system. I know it because there's one substation I've done for them with Sacheron control panels and Sacheron high-speed circuit breakers. So it's a fact of life that Calcutta Metro is upgrading itself regularly with the latest specifications.
And you can kindly go through that NEC, which has been 2023 January only has been released.
Okay.
It talks of the grounding and everything also.
So I guess
Right.
I think we have more to learn from you than we can answer you. So probably we can discuss this in the dinner time. Thank you so much. I mean, we actually welcome these questions. And before we go to the memento distribution, on behalf of Asian Development Bank, because this session is sponsored by the Asian Development Bank, and I needed to say it in the beginning itself, but it's okay. I would like to thank all the panelists for their valuable time, for their valuable insights. I know there are few speakers who have, taken long journeys and come here, and and they have to actually compromise on many of their meetings, and they had to prepare for this, and very insightful views we have got. So I really thank all the speakers. I also thank all the audience here, all the spectators here who have very patiently listened to us, and I guess you are interested in making things resilient, and your presence here shows that. So thank you very much. Thank you also to Mahua for organizing this and giving ADB the opportunity for sponsoring this session. Thank you once again. Before we go for dinner, we'll just take 5 minutes to distribute the mementos to the speakers.
Thank you, sir. I would now request the chairperson to distribute the mementos to our distinguished speakers. Now I would call upon Mr. P. Uday Kumar Reddy, General Manager, Metro Railway, Kolkata. Dr. Klaus Leibig, Head of Division Climate Finance and Mobility, South Asia. Mr. D.K. Sinha, CEO, Mumbai Metro Line 3. Ms. Rashmi Varadwaj, Additional General Manager, Architecture, DMRC. Sandeep Fuller, Senior Vice President, System, Sistra MBA, India Limited. Gaurav Srivastava, Associate Professor, Civil Engineer, IIT Gandhinagar. Yes. We thank you for joining us and for your cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, one group photograph. You can come in the front.